Welcome to episode 26, Construction Nation. This is Sue Dyer, your host of Construction Dream Team, where I interview industry leaders and experts so you can learn about the people side of construction and build your construction dream team based on OPE, other people's experiences. Accelerate your success by learning from those who've already been there and done that. I am very excited today to talk about the conversations that we've been having here on Construction Dream Team. I know that I've heard from many people who have been telling me that, man, the conversations are so good. The experts are so great. And I wish that we had a way to have more conversations. So there's two ways to engage with us, and I hope that you will engage. The first way is on constructiondreamteam.com. Every episode has its notes from that session with a lot of great links. And also there's a comment section. So leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of the episode. Let us know what you think about what we're doing, or questions or suggestions you have. This would be a great way to engage. The second way is that we have a LinkedIn group. And if you go to cdtlinkedin.com, and CDT for Construction Dream Team, linkedin.com, all run together with a .com. You can click on the link there and join the LinkedIn group, and we are going to be having conversations there as well. So 2 ways to engage and continue the conversation, and that we can know you and you can know us a little better. So thanks so much for that. And we're going to join our guest today. We're very excited to have our guest. It's Henrik Cort, who is the Director of Airport Sales for North America for Boimer Corporation. So welcome, Henrik. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Sue, and I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about how you came to be the Director of Airport Sales for North America for Boimer.
Yes, that's a little of a long journey, I guess, but I started in the material handling business in 91 after a couple of jobs that had no connection to material handling. And one of my first jobs was actually a distribution center for Levi Strauss. So I did spend some time in the early 90s in San Francisco. And that was always one of my favorite cities in the world, I guess. So I guess it was just fantastic that I got the chance much later in life to move there. After 5 years in project management, I moved to sales. And in 97, after about a year in sales, I moved to Hong Kong to start, at that time, Chris Plant's Asia Pacific operation in Asia Pacific, and it was my focus was mainly baggage handling systems. So I've been involved in that for a lot of years, I guess. In 2001, I moved back to Denmark and headed our global sales and system department. It was global, but it was not a big organization. I guess we were about 15 to 20 people, with 6 of those being local sales managers in different parts of the world. And the opportunity I got to move to North America was sort of coming from a couple of sides. One was that Boimer acquired Chris Plant that I worked for, and they wanted to be in the North American market for baggage handling with no really past presence there. And a couple of companies, including Boimer, had tried to introduce the ICS in the North American market, and I was one of the ones that said, "I can't believe it's so hard. It's proven technology, and why is it so hard?" And one person said to me, "Why don't you do it yourself?" And it was a perfect family opportunity, because I was traveling worldwide and often were away for 2 weeks at a time with small kids. I had 2 small daughters. Then it was an opportunity to spend more time with the family, having to travel less, I guess. And we moved over to the US in January 2011, and that's when I became head of sales for Bäumer baggage handling. And from there on, I guess it's more a discussion about how we then finally made it to the first ICS in the US, which is San Francisco.
Yes, it sounds like it's been quite a journey to get there. Before we
Yes.
jump into there, tell us a little bit more about Bäumer Group, just so all of us know a little bit more about what you do and where you do it.
Yeah. So Bäumer Group is a family-owned company. It's third generation. So Christoph Bäumer is the CEO, and he's third generation. The company was founded in 1935 in Germany, and today it's only material handling, but different segments. And logistics is warehouse distribution, parcel sorting is one major segment. Another segment is airport baggage handling, and there's other two segments that are within conveyor loading and palletizing, packaging. It's totally 4,400 employees, and it's about $1 billion plus US turnover a year, roughly. The company is represented in 35 countries, so we have 35 group companies, a couple of them here in the US and in Canada. The philosophy of the company is being family owned. We want to look at not short-term profit, but long-term success. We don't want to be the biggest. We want to be the best. So we're not after volume. We're after a match of divisions between a private-owned company like ours and the customers we work for. That's very important to us.
That's exciting. Family-owned business, and global in your point of view, but yet very specific and niched. So,
yes,
that's exciting. My father built conveyors, so I'll just tell you, he was an engineer that created.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that's exactly where this company grew out of.
Yeah. So now that you're in America, you were challenged to bring an ICS system to America. Prove it that you can do it. Tell us a little bit about that journey. How what did you find when you started on this journey, and where has it led you?
Well, it took me 6 months to understand why it was not just do it. So the first year I was asking myself if I had done the right thing bringing my family over. I guess some of the challenge that I had not foreseen was we sort of knew that the market in the US back then was very, it was based on bid and build. So a lot of it was already, once the vendors got involved, a lot of it was already sealed. The billing was pretty locked in. And that doesn't leave much room to change technology if everything that it was based on was conveyor or conventional conveyor. So that posed one challenge that would take time to change. The other thing that really impacted more than I thought, we knew about the Denver situation and that they had tried an ICS system in the mid-90s and it didn't quite work out. But the impact of this thing 20 years after also really took me by surprise. When people said, oh, well, we tried it in Denver, some of my colleagues had said, well, that still has a big hold in people. I learned that fairly quickly, I guess, that was really a big issue that hadn't gone away. The other thing that posed a challenge for Bäumer was that it's a private-owned company, and although it is known, I guess, that contracts in the US tend to be fairly extensive, but that also posed another challenge for a private-owned company, that the family is not prepared to sign their company away for one contract if it poses unlimited risk that nobody can evaluate. That was another concern, I guess, moving into the US market. But I don't know if that answers the question, but that was sort of the challenges we were faced with in the start. It also became clear after a little while that there is airports that operate different and that they were ready to look at new ideas. And I mean, that's how we got away of San Francisco. I was not surprised that would be one of the airports where it would happen, with Silicon Valley and I guess the whole innovative spirit that is out in that area. So that's how we came in contact with San Francisco back then.
So tell us a little bit about what you found, and why is it open there, and what's working there versus trying to put an ICS system somewhere else, and what's kind of been the journey about this to making this project happen.
So initially, we met with the project group of San Francisco, and they were very open. One of the first airport back then, and this is now 2012, 13, they were quite open to talk about new technology. And that was sort of first time I had heard that openness about it, that it was not more, no, someone else have tried that, they failed, it's not TSA approved. It was clear that the project team was very open to talk about it. And we also managed to meet Ivar and Jeff Newmeyer in a short session where they confirmed that was something they would be very open to look into it if it made financial sense, and it would, support their program, to the REACH program. And I guess that's what we conveyed back to headquarters in Germany and said, we think we found someone that is open to talk about this. And that's how it came about. It was also nice to see that the approach was that they would encourage an early involvement of the baggage handling supplier, so that the whole building was not locked in, and there was no room to actually do what's best for the airport. So that's what played out. And I guess the second element to it was, in parallel to SFO preparing for T1, we had put in a system, a test system with TSA. We knew that if this thing didn't become TSA approved, it would be impossible to get it implemented in the US airports. The struggle we had was TSA was open to talk about it, but they wouldn't move ahead without an airport. And I have to say that once Greg McCarthy got involved with the people from TSA and pushed it, that was coming into the fast lane compared to the parking lot we were at a year or so. So that really accelerated the whole process, and the fact that we were able to seriously propose an ICS for San Francisco.
Tell us a little bit about what the benefits are of using the ICS system, over other systems that might be more tried and true. What was the thing that people were looking at SFO that they thought would be potentially a real return on investment for them?
So let me start saying that an ICS is not the right thing for all airports. It's not just the miracle that will fix every airport's problem. So the reason why it fitted San Francisco so well was a couple of things. One was it was a brownfield project, but it was partly a new construction. So we were not, although we had to keep the terminal alive, it was partly a greenfield. We were allowed to think out of the box. And the benefits San Francisco were looking for was a couple. It was the life cycle cost. So the system only operates when there's things to convey, where traditional systems sort of run most of the day, even though there's very limited to convey. And the fact that it shuts down as soon as there's nothing makes the wear and tear on the system much less. It makes it draw less power. It uses a lot of less power, at least half, 50% less, because of the less runtime, less wear and tear. But also from an operational point of view, it has 100% tracking. All the bags are in a tote, and that means we don't lose track of the bag. We have 100% tracking. There's a lot less jam. Jam will occur, but it's less than a tenth of what you would see in a traditional system. And there was also some lead design. It's more environmental friendly, both based on the running cost because of power and spare parts, but also because of the construction material. It's much lighter, much lighter. So I think those were the main benefits of the system.
That's cool. So tell us about, the journey of getting it there into SFO and what has happened as you have worked to implement this.
So I had the pleasure of moving out and start as we got the award. We were a team of 5 that started up in San Francisco Airport, working with SFO and the builders, like the 2 GCs that were on T1, HP, and Webcore, and we worked closely with them. In the beginning, the most work was associated with comparing a conventional system with an ICS and sort of work out a conceptual design on both. And then we did a comparison, a life cycle cost assessment. So that was the basis for a decision. At the end of the day, it was a matter of return on investment. And although an ICS is slightly more expensive in CapEx, the initial cost, the operational cost is cheaper. And I think it was 4.5 years that was the ROI. And that's how it became an ICS at the end. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. What have you learned from this experience? What are you walking away with after you've kind of been through this, putting this together?
So what impressed us the most, and it was hard for my colleagues in Europe to believe this was actually the case, was we have never been involved so early in a project. So the benefits that this collaborative effort brought to the table was, for the first time I can see, we could actually utilize the benefits of an ICS system 100%, where I guess I have to say in most other airports, it was like 70% or 60% because elements of the terminal building had already been locked down or locked in. They couldn't move this or they couldn't move that. Here we had completely free room to be innovative and to engage the stakeholders very early. So the learning experience was working together with the GCs and the stakeholders early made it possible to fully utilize the benefits of the system that was chosen. It also made it possible for us to take the comments from the stakeholders and still be able to accommodate changes, because the building design and the baggage handling design sort of ran in parallel. It was not the typical sequential planning. It ran parallel, and that means we could accommodate for changes. And we did actually. So we ended up installing more makeup carousels. We installed more input lines that was sort of at the schematic design level, and the other design and builders were able to accommodate that. That's probably the biggest learning curve for us. Obviously, the benefits of such an early development was that our design could be implemented in the building. So examples of that is we were in early enough to be able to put in our precast into the concrete columns and the ceiling, so that when you go and see the system one day, you will see that it almost seems like the building is tailor-made to the baggage system. That's quite unusual if you go into a back room, but it almost appears like that because the support structure is embedded into the concrete columns and the ceiling. It's quite impressive in my opinion. And we have had no conflict in the installation so far due to the early BIM coordination with the other design partners. So the installation is 90% done, and we have had no conflict so far. That's also quite unusual.
Wow. So it sounds like it's extremely efficient as well.
It is.
I mean, in the process of putting it together, as well as the system.
Yes, it is very efficient.
So So what do you think now about working in the United States?
Yeah, well, that's it's a total different ball game now. I think there's a couple of things that have spun off from this. One is that the ICS is really getting into the mind of a lot of airports. So there's a lot of airports now that are implementing it, or at least in the design process where they're looking at it. Some are beyond looking; they are actually doing it. So I think that's probably because San Francisco dared to be the first, and now this hesitation that nobody wants to be the first is gone. Some people are doing it now, and the other thing that is very interesting is that the San Francisco partnering model has got out there. So we have had visitors from Toronto that was very interested in the model, actually. So they visited San Francisco. They had lessons learned with the key people of the SFO team. We have got inquiries now from airports in Asia Pacific that have heard about San Francisco and how it's done there. So I'm actually impressed how the word have got out there. So I'm looking forward to work under this model in other airports.
So tell us a little bit about the collaborative partnering model and from your experience.
So the early stakeholder involvement, in my opinion, is key to achieving the right design. And I guess sometimes people will say, well, it takes too long time and there's too many meetings. But on the other hand, the implementation will be so much easier. So the extra time you might spend up front, you will get threefold back at the end. The other is you can say the buy out model, where and that was probably the one that had the biggest concern from Europe, was the fact that it's a progressive design and pricing. There was some, I guess, I won't call it disbelief, but there were some suspicions that, hey, is this really true? Is this how they will do it? Are they really SFO really willing to share the risk as the design develops in terms of where the final cost would end? That was probably the hardest thing to explain, and I guess I would be lying if I didn't think, wow, is that really how they're gonna do it? Are they gonna walk the talk? But yes, they did. Everything so far, and we are a long way now, has been walking the talk. So I think those are the two major learnings from us: is the stakeholder involvement early, and the progressive design and build that allows for innovation without some contractors feeling that they are largely at risk.
And is the owner paying extra for this?
I would say no, because the time and maybe money you would say they spend up front for achieving the design is coming back in less hassle at the end. So as long as you have a pricing agreement on how equipment is priced up, then you have an agreement that I can see as different from a bid build, you could say, where the equipment costs X dollars. The whole difference to me is in the end result that you end up with, where you're not ending up with a half solution because certain things have been fixed early. Is the best way I think I can explain it.
That's excellent. So just changing it up a little bit, in German, being a German company and in other parts of the world. I mean, tell us a little bit about what makes a good leader in other parts of the world from your experience.
I don't know if I have the answer to that. I think leadership probably requires flexibility to deal with the situation you are in and the specific culture you're in. I could see Scandinavian leader principles not working in different parts of the world. But I think generally what I've seen worldwide where I have interacted is that a leader that is more of a coach and more sets out the direction, but leave it up to the employees and his employees to get there and to make his own decisions within the responsibility area has, I think they would succeed long term. They would create an environment of teamwork where they will act more like a coach rather than someone that gives very specific instructions on how to do your job. And I think that's also what we've seen in San Francisco. That is that leadership style where the teams figure out how to best achieve the goals that has been set out by the management. And I guess I come from Scandinavia, where you could say it's a lot about a consensus-driven management. If you ask a Scandinavian to do a job, if you don't understand why, you will get a lot of questions or no work done. So I guess you have to tell people why they have to do it, and if you want to tell them how they have to do it, you also have to explain this. I know that has created some challenges between, I guess, Danes and US people that we had on the team. So it's a melting pot, the project team, which have done a fantastic job, but culturally it's a melting pot, what we have in San Francisco, between Europeans, some Asians, Americans. So but the project management team and David Delaney, who is our project director, have done a fantastic job.
That sounds like quite a challenge in some ways, but it seems like it's all got the underpinning of a collaborative team.
Yes.
Everyone's trying to create and work as a collaborative team.
Exactly.
And develop trust.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I support that. It is. I guess it is also generally worldwide. I cannot see why the collaborative way of work would not be the right method. Generally, exactly how you execute it can probably deviate, but that to me is the right way to get the best result.
Excellent. So in your career, where you've lived quite a few different places and worked on different types of projects, not everything's always gone exactly as planned.
No.
What has been your biggest challenge that you've ever faced in your career? Take us back to that worst moment and tell us about that.
The worst moment was probably, we did a project some 6-7 years ago in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. And we did implement new technology, and I don't want to scare people now, but we were of the opinion that we had tested this technology. It was a tilt tray sorter, which was a new model for us, and it had been tested in our test facility, and everybody was convinced that we had tested it enough. This was a very tight schedule, and it was open heart surgery. We basically replaced an existing conveyor system with a tilt tray sorter, keeping the existing system alive. And at a certain point, the airport simply had to go live. And although we were almost ready, I would say we could have certainly needed some more months, but we decided to accommodate and go live. And the first 2 days of operation, we could just see that system was simply not ready. We saw baggage we had never imagined. And I guess we were not, the time constraint given, we had not educated the check-in operation enough on how to induct bags to the system. And that was probably the worst I have experienced. Like, you go live with an airport and you have one stoppage after the other in a live operation, where it was a single point of failure, you could say. If that system didn't work, we wouldn't take bags from passengers. That was my worst experience, to get through that.
I'll bet you learned some things. What did you learn?
Well, again, it's sort of the same principles. Once you have this deep crisis, you get together with the airport and you openly discuss what the issues are. We had no interest hiding anything. We also explained to the airport that, hey, yeah, this was our fault. We owned the issue, and we told them what we would do in order to fix it, but it was not something that would go away in a month. That was also clear. So in an effort together with the airport, we came up with backup measures. We employed extra people to manually place baggage on the system, ensuring that difficult baggage didn't get through, things like that. But it was a 3 months effort in tight teamwork with the operations while we were getting a fix for the problem. And we got a fix in the fastest R&D team I've seen. They came up with a solution that is implemented, and it was, I think, maybe 4 months into it, we could implement it, and they have a great system today. So I guess that also builds stronger ties. The fact we went through a crisis together probably made us stronger in the end.
I see that too on teams. Teams that have gone through hard times together and come out the other end tend to be pretty cohesive.
Yes, that's funny how that actually happens, right? That even though we were the one to blame for the issue, I guess, but the airport still, I guess, appreciated the effort, and we came stronger out.
Well, that and blame doesn't really solve the problem.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But it's also someone taking ownership if it's
Absolutely.
true ownership, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you try not to take ownership, then it becomes pointing finger.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your career, what's the best advice you have ever received?
So when I was relatively young, which is many years ago, when I started operating in Asia, I was not really culturally aware of how, I guess, Asians were thinking. And there was I won't call her older, but she was older than me. We had an employee at our office in Singapore, and she told me about the Asian culture and how they focus so much on the personal relationship. That's the key to everything. Where out there, we could spend hours, or the first couple of hours, not talking business, just talking about who are you, who am I, understand each other. And if you could build that personal trust, a lot of other issues goes away. And I guess I've taken benefit of that advice since, and I think it's so true. Projects are not between companies, but they are more between people. And if they trust each other, then magic happens.
That's very wise. Sounds like great advice. So we ask everyone to give us a gift. What is a gift, a resource, a book? It could be something that you really treasure or you think has been really meaningful to you that you would like to share with all of us.
I like easy books that are easy to read. And there was a book called Our Iceberg is Melting. I think that's a great book that if you don't change your behavior and embrace change as your environment changes, you will end up in trouble, and you will end up causing troubles to others as well. So I thought that was a great book about embracing change and make the best out of it to the better.
Cool. And is that in English?
Yes.
Okay. Then we will put a link on your show page so people can find that.
Okay. Yes.
And how can people find you if they wanted to get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn.
And I know you're moving to Singapore soon. So
yes, but that will not change my LinkedIn. So yes, I would be happy to stay in contact. As a matter of fact, I will stay in contact with San Francisco. That's sort of been the arrangement. So I will not be completely detached from the US market. So
nice.
Please feel free to reach out.
And do you have any parting advice for us? Something that maybe people could start doing this week to help their teams maybe think outside of the box and be collaborative?
I think my advice is built on what we have experienced in San Francisco, and that's really, it's not dangerous to involve your vendors early in a project. I guess the concern that I most often hear when we sort of discuss the partnering or partnership from an early stage is the concern that the buyer won't get the cheapest price. That's the biggest concern I hear. And I would say that if you make the right arrangements from an early stage, you might pay a couple of percents more because you don't get the low bid, but you will earn it tenfold back in the right design, no conflict at site. All of these things we talked about with our experience in San Francisco, that will be my advice to the construction community. Don't fear to involve vendors early in a partnership relationship. If you pick the right partner that has the same vision, you will get it tenfold back.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Henrik, for such a great episode today. Really appreciate it. It gives us a perspective both globally and also about some new technology and also how we can work together as a team to implement such things. And so really appreciate you being here very, very much.
Well, I would thank you for driving this, Sue. It has learned me a lot being involved in the SFO project. I have to say that.
Well, thank you. And Construction Nation, remember, dreams don't just happen. They're built one step at a time. So really, all of our great guests that have come on Construction Dream Team all have shared a gift, some kind of resource to share with everyone, their best and favorite things. And if you go to constructiondreamteam.com and click on the resource button, we have put them all on one page for you. So you can easily find all of these resources that have been shared. And if you're not a member of Audible, we've also made a deal with them that you can get your first book free. So you just have to click on it and you will get the first book for free. So remember that Construction Dream Team drops every Monday morning at 4 a.m. Pacific time. So please join me next week when I will interview another industry leader or expert about the people side of construction so you can learn how to create your construction dream team. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Henrik. And I will catch you next time.